So welcome to the Men's Mental Health Initiative book review series. My name's Tony Cotraccia and I'm one of the founders of the Men's Mental Health Initiative. I'm here with David Figura, author of So What Are the Guys Doing? I'm excited to hear about your book, David, and about all of the first-person stories that I think do an excellent job of highlighting what men's mental health is all about. In fact, I think all of the nuggets of good mental health are in this book, for men and women. But we're going to focus on men today. So the subtitle of the book is Inspiration About Making Changes and Taking Risks for a Happier Life.
When I first started working on this book, let's just put it this way, Tony. I was a train wreck waiting to happen. My marriage was going downhill fast. I had been contacted by a woman who I dated in my distant past who wanted to have an affair, and I came about this far to carrying it out. I was miserable going into work each day. I didn't like what I did, and I was seeing what was happening to the newspaper industry, and wondering whether it was for me after some more than 20 years in the business. And worse yet, I was a workaholic with few or any friends that I could do anything with. And I was in a tough place.
Would you say this was you sensing you were in a middle life crisis or middle age crisis?
Yeah, you know, it was funny because I thought I was the only one going through this crap. And you know, as I started to work through some of the stuff, I started doing a lot of reading, and I realized a lot of guys go through this. And did that make me feel any better? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it sort of like gave me strength that, you know, I'm not the only one experiencing this. Others have gone through it. Like, what have they done? How did they pull themselves out of it? And along the way, as I started reading books about men and women during this time of life, I started realizing there were some common principles that came out, and in all three of those areas, the marriage, the work, the social relationships, I came across, you know, this one idea that if there was going to be any changes, it wasn't going to happen unless I did it. And no one was going to do it for me. My wife wasn't going to do it for me, my friends, my family. I had to do it myself. And that was sort of like an awakening.
In the book you talk about that environment that might make an affair something that is a more likely outcome to escape dealing with depression or that state you were in. You use the metaphor of burning embers that might still be there, and that with enough wind and then the right circumstances, things could flare up.
I mean, I talk about that situation with all those things going on in my life at once. Can I do any better than this? You know, and being a guy, I wanted to fix it. I wanted to fix it quick. I wanted a quick fix, you know? It's just like, if something's wrong, what do I gotta do? I want to fix it. And it's kind of funny because, well, it wasn't actually, it was sad because at that point my one and only and best friend was miserable, and I found myself in a situation, and I'll just be frank about it. It really sucks when your best and only friend is your wife and you're having marital problems.
And one of the conditions that you pointed out that was would make something like an affair a possibility was blaming and other people.
Resentment.
You were resentment, right? Rather than the, you know, I have to fix this you were talking about. That sounded like a key vulnerability is putting the blame outside of yourself for just changing these
and there was
areas of life.
Countless arguments, between my wife and I, where you know, when you talk like this, I don't want to be in the same room with you, and she'd walk out on me, and it would just be like, oh yeah.
Talk like this. How were you talking? Like what would? How would you describe what she was picking up?
It was like, nah, and it was just, you know, nothing was being accomplished. We were just voicing. She was drifting, and naturally, I think a lot of women do this. You know, the kids were in getting ready to go to college. One was in college, one was on the way. The empty nest years were right around the corner, and she was just saying, you know, when the kids are gone, I got a lot more time for myself. And she was like already doing more things with her girlfriends, and I was doing absolutely nothing. You know, looking to her to be my source of entertainment, recreation, and it was just, and like I said, it just wasn't happening.
So like all your eggs were in the same basket.
Right.
Of your friendship with your wife.
Right, and it was not a good situation. That if it would have remained that way, it would have been a much different outcome than what actually happened. But I think that it came down to, you know, that whole thing. Things weren't going to change unless I did something. I do it, you know. And I actually wrote that down on a note card and I put it on my mirror in the bathroom, and it's there today. Awesome. It won't happen unless I do it. And you look at it like, well, if your marriage sucks and things aren't going well, who's going to change it? You know, you're going to leave it on your wife to make the move? And I mean, and I started thinking, and I don't know if you're a very religious person, but my faith in God and all that has grown since I went through all this. And I was driving into work one day, and I see a bumper sticker on a car. Actually, it's on a bumper of a truck, which says, "Marriage is grand, divorce is $100,000." Think about it. And I felt like God was like slapping me in the back of the head, you know, like, think about it. And so my wife went off on one of these girlfriend getaways and came back, and she was going to go on another one in 3 weeks, and I didn't know it was scheduled. She said, it's on the calendar, and we got this big knockdown, drag-out argument, and it just suddenly that, you know, things aren't going to get better unless I do something about it.
So you're feeling jealous of her having this time?
resentful. And can we afford this? You know, what are you spending on yourself versus what I'm spending shit on myself? I'm nothing on myself, and you're going off and you're going to go down to Key West with a couple friends, and you're going to spend the next time down in Annapolis, and what the heck, you know?
You're right. You're right about the money angst in the book.
And I had no freaking idea what she was spending, and she was the one paying the bills. I was just being a typical guy, like, you know, cheap and like, well, hell, all I knew was I wasn't spending anything on myself.
Blaming her for.
So I was transferring that unhappiness to her, like saying, how the hell can you spend that on yourself, but I'm not spending anything on myself? Doesn't that sound kind of, I kind of laugh at it afterwards. It's like, well, why don't you spend something on yourself? No, I was just resentful to her, and I was going to like get even. I was going to, you know, all these terrible like childish things are going through my head, like 50 years old, I'm going to get even? I mean, but you know, hey, affairs have started for even less reason, but that was where I was at, which was kind of crazy. So anyway, she comes back from one of these girlfriend getaways. It was a 3-day kayak weekend up in the Adirondacks. And then she says, oh, in 3 weeks I'm going with my sister and 2 more friends down to Key West. And I just exploded. It's like, can we afford this? Blah, 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 blah. We started, everyone yelling at each other. And, why are you so angry? Why are you so mad? And it was just like, the reason I'm so mad, the reason I'm so angry is that I don't like where our marriage is going. And I'm this far away from leaving you and having an affair with someone I dated.
You said that.
You
just came out.
I just came out. And she said, well, have you slept with this person? Have you had... I said, no, but I'm this close. And she just crumbled on the floor. And it's a very emotional moment for me because I love her. But this is what it come to. And she just looked at me off the floor and says, so, what do you want me to do? Is this supposed to make me feel better? What do you want to do? And I can't remember whether she said it or I said it, but it was just like, well, I don't want to leave you. I don't want this marriage. We got our kids. We got, let's try marriage counseling.
Yeah.
And that's how
Just like
that's how we got involved. It wasn't like, hey, do you think we should have marriage counseling? We're not getting along. No, it was like this moment.
Yeah.
And she realized it was like, whoa, there was a fire raging, and she better do something about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that was one of the hardest and initially the biggest changes I made was fessing up to her that this just isn't working unless we do something about it. We got to change.
Had you ever suggested marriage counseling or done marriage counseling? Or?
Never.
No.
Never. I had like the typical guy thing that, well, if you need marriage counseling, it's because you're a failure. Because like your marriage hasn't worked. And as a guy, guys don't like to admit that. Women see marriage counseling. I've since talked to a lot of marriage counselors about this.
Yeah.
Women often see marriage counseling as, oh, this is a chance to make things better.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like a matter of like, can I fix things myself?
Yeah.
Can I? Well, no. Well, obviously, we just couldn't talk about things honestly until that one moment.
Yeah.
And we suddenly realized how far we were apart.
Yeah.
Because she had no idea that I was thinking this stuff. The precursor to that confrontation was that weekend when we had the argument. I got in my truck and I started driving towards where this woman that had contacted me lived.
Yeah.
And I drove by our house, and my son was home that weekend, and he didn't go out and the light was on, and I drove by our house, and I got about a mile up the road.
Yeah.
And I just pulled over and I said, the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
And you know what? It wasn't like saving my marriage. It's like, what the hell am I going to tell him? Like, Dad, where were you last night? Where'd you go?
Yeah.
And I was just like a wreck. I was like sobbing. I was pounding the dashboard like, I am so freaking miserable. I am unhappy. And that's like, what am I going to tell him? What am I going to tell my daughter?
Wow.
And that was so... That weekend was very emotional.
Yeah.
So I came back, and I didn't sleep all that night. And the following morning, I had a breakfast with a close friend that I had said I'd have breakfast with. And he just looked at me and goes, you are a wreck. What the hell's going on? And I told him all this stuff, and he said, you know what? I'd be unhappy too. You needed to talk to her. And once again, this is a friend who I reached out to, who I wasn't really that close to, but I just felt like I needed to talk to someone.
Yeah.
So that happened just before this thing with my wife.
Yeah.
And the thing was, it was like all in a weekend, and it was like a crazy ass weekend. I was tired. I was sleeping. I confided to a friend who said, you're not nuts. It's just like, well, maybe you need to talk this out. And I'm just like, So anyway, that was the precursor. And then that Sunday night when she came home was when that whole confrontation with my wife went down.
Yeah. So there you are. I see two things there. You're identifying what you don't like about your life.
Right.
That's all about you.
Right.
And then you're sharing that with a friend.
Right.
Who sees that, and who wants you to have a better life as well.
Right.
You're not talking about your wife. You're not talking about your job or the world. You're identifying within yourself what wasn't going right.
Oh, and also she wanted to put me on an antidepressant.
Yeah.
Some sort of natural St. John warts or something like that.
Yeah,
I thought that was complete bullshit because that wasn't my problem.
Yeah. I mean, that might have made you more comfortable. But you needed to figure out what wasn't going right in your life.
I didn't tell him about the affair, but I said I wasn't happy. But
you weren't happy with
But
your
I
life.
told him that she wanted to put me on this, and do you think I'm depressed? He goes, no.
Yeah.
He goes, you got to sort this
You
out.
gotta change your life.
It's not about me, it's about her.
Yeah.
You know?
So maybe something about feeling a sense of failure gets you to
Right,
look
right.
out rather than looking in.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, hey, our roof leaks and tell me how to fix it. You know, what kind of tile, what do I put some paper on? You know,
Yeah.
I'll fix it.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. I'll find that YouTube video. Figure out.
But you know, it's, yeah.
So you're not gonna fix yourself by going on YouTube and looking for the
No.
how to.
No.
You went inside and then you told a friend.
Yeah, well, the thing was, what happened in our marriage counseling was that I actually was the one who came with a list.
Okay.
And I had a couple slips of paper in my pocket, and that was the big joke.
Yeah.
Where I was listing all this stuff. My wife was saying, I had no idea you were feeling this way.
Yeah.
And she would tell me stuff that, well, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I had no idea you were feeling this way. But that was it almost became the joke towards the end of the marriage counseling. Like, you got any more slips of paper in your pocket, David? She's like, yeah, like, let's get this all sorted out, you know?
Yeah.
But I just saw it as a chance to say things, because I still loved her.
Yeah.
And we went out afterwards, and there was a lot of crying, a lot of hand-holding and drinks afterwards. Like, I didn't realize this, and I realized with all my resentment, all the stuff that I had problems with, she had some really deep-seated problems with stuff I was doing, which
You weren't aware of.
I was, you know, I once had a friend who was a Franciscan, well, he was a Franciscan priest, and he was also a marriage counselor too. And I'll never forget this. I talked to him about, I was having this problem with a girlfriend, and I went and talked to him about, and he did marriage counseling, and it wasn't, and he just said, you know, one of the single biggest sins or problems with couples that I see in marriage counseling, he said, what's that? He goes, selfishness. Selfishness. You know, and my attitude was, it was all about me and what I needed out of marriage, and I really wasn't thinking, even though I was resentful as hell about her, I wasn't thinking what she needed. Yeah. And I realized that I was a terrible listener, that every day I came home from work and all I did was talk about all the crap that went on in my work, and I never once asked her, what's going on with your work? Or I relied on her for planning everything in our social life. Yeah. Vacations, weekend dinners, whatever. You know, she put them all on the calendar, and I did none of that. Yeah,
you mentioned in your book that when you began doing that.
Oh yeah, she was like, and she resented it. Yeah. She never told me that. I said, "Oh, you're good at that," but she resented that I have to plan your whole life.
That she had to.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And now you're complaining about the fact that you don't have enough things for yourself. Yeah. And like, and she always just say, "Who's stopping you?" Yeah. And that's when I was doing this book. You know, there were some people who I thought, oh my God, this guy's in my head. This is exactly what I'm going through. And there were some guys who I felt sorry for, and there's some guys who inspired me. Yeah. And the one guy I interviewed, I identify him in the book as a police officer. Okay. And he was like talking about problems with his wife and himself, and same deal. Wife was going away down in New York City, girlfriend getaways, doing all this stuff, and kids are off to college, and why, you know, how can we afford this? How can you do this? And she once got in his face big time and went right in his chest and goes, you know what? It's not my job to make you happy. That's your job. Yeah. And he said, it's like a light bulb went out. Like, wow, I never quite thought of it that way. Yeah. And I came home, you know, and it was like, once again, honey, this guy, look, it reinforced everything. It's not, you know, it won't happen unless I do it. Yeah. And I suddenly realized after marriage counseling, I got to start doing stuff for myself. Yeah. And I did. And that's, you know, the second thing, you know, with doing all the friends and all. But I had this attitude that my wife is my only and best friend.
Yes.
And I didn't need guys outside of that or anything else going on. And a lot of what I've read since then, and a lot of what I've gone through in life, and starting all these social groups, the poker club, the co-ed volleyball team, the horseshoe league, I realized that I was living a real unbalanced life by putting all my eggs in her basket.
Yeah, sure.
And that she was doing all this stuff, she got it, but that I didn't get it. And like when that police officer told me that thing about it's not my job, and I started thinking, well, should I really depend on her for everything? And then it came down to, I had an early manuscript, and I had my brother read it. He's got a PhD in chemistry, and he's got like a physician wife at the time, and that's BS. We do everything together, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
Professional couple. And then at age 57, his wife left him. And he called me up and he said, guess what? I said, why? He goes, all our friends were her friends. I don't have anybody calling me up to go to parties anymore. I don't go on vacations with anybody. We all went with her friends, and I just hung with their husbands for,
Yeah, right.
And they were my friends by default or whatever. And, I keep running into people when I'm doing these book signings and stuff who will look at me, and one of the pivotal questions I asked them, and I asked all the guys I interviewed for this book, was, I start off every interview, who's your best friend, apart from your wife, apart from someone in your family, your girlfriend, who's your best friend and when's the last time you did anything with them?
Yeah.
And the answers I got from guys at times were like staggering. It was like, I don't need friends, friends are for women, my wife is my best friend. I said, I don't need anyone other than my wife. I don't need your book, and they'd walk away. Like one guy did that, and I was like, well, I think you need to read this. And then, I this keeps, when I go to these signings or I talk to people, to groups, I keep bringing this up. And I had one group of like 35 women, it's one book club, and I announce this, and I always kind of think I'm going to get like blowback, that people are going to disagree with me. And one woman, I said, one of the things I said, about the friends, and guys aren't as happy in midlife because they don't get this friends thing. Sometimes I'm just amazed by it, and that women are by and large handling these years better because they are making time for themselves. They are going out and doing things with their girlfriends, and it isn't damaging their relationship with their husband. It's actually like making it better because they're happier with themselves. And guys don't get this. Not all guys, but a lot of guys don't. And I said this at a book club, and one woman in the back raised her hand, and I said, what you have a question? She goes, you said that a lot of women are handling these years better than men. And she goes, that's not a book. That's not anything new. We all know this. We sleep with these guys. We live with these guys. We're experiencing this. So it's not news to us. And I was just kind of, I laughed. I was kind of finding like, wow, I guess a lot of guys need to talk about this.
And you've talked about having time versus making time. Tell me a little bit about that.
There's a whole, and you keep getting into this. Like when I was forming my first group that I formed was the Low Stakes Poker Group that meets once a month, and you can't lose more than $5. It's more of a social thing. We play with chips on a felt table, and we talk politics and everything under the sun. And it took me about 25 guys just asking. And I was really frustrated at first, and my wife kept saying, you don't know what people got going. Just keep going, keep going. And I eventually got this group, and now it's like morphed into this really close-knit thing where I've had women ask me like, hey, could you get my husband in something like this? He doesn't have anything going like this. And it's the same thing with the volleyball and the horseshoes, which some people might think, well, you've overdone it, Figura, it's too much. But I write about this in the book, that I was doing all these groups, and they're still intact 10 years after. And
so you're making the time, rather than thinking, well, I don't have the time.
okay, this happened. Talk about making the time for what's important. And this is a little bit of a deviation from this, but this just happened to me recently. My daughter's getting married in October.
Awesome.
And she calls me up and says, Dad, you've taken at least 3 father-son fishing trips with Alex, her brother.
Yeah.
You've never taken me anywhere, just you and me. Yeah. And I'm getting married in October, and can you take the time to come down to New Orleans for a father-daughter getaway? At the end of May, we're gonna go see, at April, we're gonna go see a jazz fest, Tom Petty concert.
Awesome.
And I'm like, geez, do I have enough time? Do I have enough? Katie, let me call you back. And my wife looks at me and goes, are you kidding me? How many times is your daughter going to ask you for a father-daughter getaway before he gets married? You know, that time where that precious, that's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
You're rolling her
life. She might
life.
Stop asking.
You're rolling her life's going to go like that. So you make the time. I don't care if you got to work weekends or whatever. You make the time. It says, how can you? And I called her right back and said, I'm buying the tickets.
Awesome.
I made the time. And that's an example of what's important.
Yeah. You also talk about, once you make the time and get things going, how things have a way in the future of paying you back because you made the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's friends. Friends. Yeah. It's like I said about good friends make for a good life. And I can go on and on about all the social spin-offs, all the positive social spin-offs, all the positive spin-offs of getting together and forming relationships with this guy, so I wouldn't have known from Adam unless I started this group.
And things happen that you couldn't prescribe.
And not only with me, but with other guys in the group.
Yeah.
I mean,
give me an example.
With me,
sure.
When I wrote this book, you know, I needed to have a lawyer look at it.
Yeah.
And one of the guys in my horseshoe group, when I talked about this, well, hell, I got this guy who's going to charge me $1,000 just to give it a quick read over. And he goes, well, you know, I'm a lawyer for National Grid, and my wife used to be in the broadcast business, and I used to look over the contracts for her and several other news people in the Syracuse market. So I'm familiar with media law, and why don't you have...
While he's throwing a horseshoe.
Yeah, I'll look at it for free. And he did.
Yeah.
And he underlined all this stuff, and you know what?
For free.
For free.
So there's the money angst, you know, isn't always a reality.
Right. I never would have happened in a million years. You know, like I said, if I hadn't been with this guy, or my microwave goes on the blink. And do you know how to install a microwave?
No.
Over the stove there.
The stove, yeah.
I had no freaking idea. So one of the guys in my poker club, I mentioned to him, he goes, "Oh, I've done that before. I'll come over this weekend and I'll put it in." Yeah. Did you buy it? Yeah. Well, let's do it. Saturday afternoon. And we did it. And my wife goes, "Tom, you're really good with electric stuff. You think maybe you could help David put up this new chandelier we got in the dining room?" He goes, "Piece of cake."
Yeah.
And he puts up the chandelier, and Laura goes, "Well, what about dimmers? You know how to do dimmers?" He goes, "Piece of cake." So I got a microwave, a chandelier, and I got dimmers all through it. You know, I call that social capital. I mean, that was, it's a sociological term, but it's like it comes down to, I help you tear down your deck this weekend, and you know what, next weekend, you let me borrow your truck to move your kid to another apartment. I mean, that's life. Yeah. And you can say, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I can afford and pay for all that myself." No, but that's what friends do for each other. Yeah. And one last thing. Yeah. This just blew me away. There's a guy in my horseshoe group whose son got this IT-related job and has been sitting home for 6 months, not able to find work after he graduated. Yeah. And two of the guys who never would have met if they hadn't been on horseshoes One of the guys got this high-level job in this IT firm, and it's based in Washington. He travels all over. He's like, and he said, well, you know, our company offers internships. What's his background again? This is over beer after horseshoes. What's his background?
Sweet.
What's his whatever? And that summer, the kid, through that one guy, got an internship down in Washington. And guess what? In the fall, they hired him full time.
Awesome.
That never would have happened unless those two guys hadn't met through that group.
Yeah.
And I can go on and on those sort of things. And people say, I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't need
I don't
friends.
have time for horseshoes.
I don't have time for horseshoes. I don't have time. But all these spin-offs, I can go on and on with those sort of things. In 10 years, you see that stuff happen. And I've had my wife or wives or even guys come up to me and say, you know what? This never would have happened if we weren't friends, if we didn't throw shoes together.
And if somebody wasn't getting us to come out.
Right.
You know, somebody wasn't keeping the group going.
Right, and if we didn't plan it.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, I don't know, the whole thing about guys and planning, and this was with the horseshoe, with the poker club initially.
Yeah.
Get this, it was like every month, once a month we're going to meet. And I actually did this. I would get on a damn phone and call all 5 guys and say, when's the best Saturday for you to come? Well, the 3rd Saturday. Well, the 4th Saturday. And I'd be going back and forth calling all these guys. Yeah. And my wife goes, why don't you do what us women do? And I said, what's that? And she goes, you just set a date and you get everyone on an email string and you just say, we're going to play the 2nd Saturday of every month. Yeah. Can you make it?
Yeah.
And if you can't, well, you miss it that month.
Right. Make it the next month.
And the guys were like, whoa. And then I wrote, and what I want you to do is go to your kitchen calendar and write it down. Next to your wife's book club, next to her bunco, next to whatever. Yeah. And you know what? We meet the 2nd Saturday. It's like one guy dropped out and everyone said, I want to play. Yeah. And so now it's like even the wives say, hey, it's a 2nd Saturday. You guys playing poker.
Even they know when it is.
Even they know. But it's like that sort of planning stuff is scheduling. That's what you got to do. Yeah. I go back to that guy at the book signing who says, you know, my wife is my best and only friend. And I have various answers I've given over the, you know, over the last couple of years that I've had book signings for this. And recently I had a book signing down in Kingston at a Barnes & Noble. Yeah. And this 80-year-old woman walked up to me and she said, what's your book about? And I talked about all this stuff, you know, about men and friends and the importance of friendship and this and that. And how I keep running into guys who say, my wife is my best and only friend and that's all I need. Yeah. And she goes, well, my husband and I, he's been dead 7 years, but my husband had all these outside activities, and we had a great marriage. We were happy all the way through it, and then out of the spur of the moment, she starts quoting some verse out of Khalil Gibran's The Prophet about marriage. And I'm just blown away because it basically reinforces everything that I've been talking about. Yeah. And so I went home, and she just had one verse, but let me read this. I'll read some excerpts on this. I read this when I was in college, and it just like went right over my head, and I never read it again, you know. And I went back, and he writes about marriage. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read excerpts. But he talks about, of course, you know, marriage. You'll be together even in the silent memory of God and all this stuff about how permanent it is and this and that. But it says, let there be spaces in your togetherness and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but not make a bond of love, but rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. And listen to this. Yeah. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone. Even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. And get this, it says, give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts. and stand together, yet not two together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. And
Awesome.
I was just kind of blown away when I read that. It's like,
Yeah.
this is, Gibran said this how many
Yeah.
centuries
Yeah.
ago, whatever the hell he wrote this, but it's like, it just epitomizes my point, which is like, you know, and I'm not saying, hey, my wife and I spend a heck of a lot of time together. We do a lot of things together, and I love her very much, but we recognize the need to give each other space to do our own things.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a age-old thing, you know, if mama's happy, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think there's a lot of truth to that in marriage.
Yeah.
But I've come up with a corollary to that, which is I am the best husband, I am the best lover, the best father, the best friend I can be when I'm happy with myself.
Yeah, yeah.
And
not in the shadow of
right, no, not it's not like right, no.
Mom's not in dad's shadow.
Right, you know, and my wife agrees with that. She goes, you know, ever since you've been happy with yourself, our marriage is a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
My kids have noticed. I'm not grumpy all the time. I'm like, you know, more myself. And it's just, and once again, it gets back to, well, who's in charge of that?
Yeah.
Is your wife, your friends? No, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like what I call self-leadership.
Right.
A good formula for mental health. We both have our own cups.
Yeah.
With water, and cups of life, and we can share it, but they're separate.
Exactly. And, you know,
after all, what do we get together to talk about? But what's in our own cup? You know, that can bring us together to be separate enough to say, hey, guess what I did today, or guess what happened in the group, you know? And she tells you what happened in her day, and but if there's no separateness, then it's hard.
Well,
to
to me, it was like all about me.
I'm just talking about you, right? Or you're just talking about me,
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was in my. Once again, I am not a professional marriage counselor. I'm not a counselor. I'm just your average guy who went through this crap.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way I wrote this book.
Yeah.
You know, it's not preachy. It's like, this is what I did. This is what I went through. This is what I did. This is what other guys say. You take out of it what you want. But one part that I just will not, one sentence I write in that which I will not like back off on is like, you know, good friends do make for a good life. And guys need to talk about that and act upon it.
Yeah.
But getting to that point of acting upon it was tough for me at times. And I almost quit the volleyball team twice because the guys weren't, and the women, they weren't going out afterwards. It's like we play and they go home and it's like, wait a minute, it's 8 o'clock and my wife's out with her friends playing indoor soccer. And the reason I formed it was because I wanted something else. And eventually I got a group that we all go out, and it's fantastic. And we share all this stuff.
Talk about how it went,
But, you know, that's another thing about guys, I mean, I found, is that, you know, I hear this all the time, like, I can't believe guys told you all this crap. Guys don't say, excuse me, like, guys don't say shit, you know? They got on the golf course, it's always like, how the Knicks doing, boy, those Giants are doing well, you know? They don't ever get into the whatever, the nitty gritty, as my wife likes to call it, you know. But what I found out is, number one, you got to get in the situation first before that conversation will ever happen.
Right.
And I had a thing in horseshoes where I had one guy, he never said crap to me, you know, but someone else brought him in, and then one day he just, before everyone else came to the bar after it was thrown, he just turned to me and goes, you know, I just finished reading your book, and my wife and I went through a tough row, and we wouldn't be married today if it wasn't for marriage counseling. And I brought in a laundry list of stuff, And same as you, in your book, she had no idea this was going on.
Yeah.
And that's why we're together today.
Yeah.
And he's never said anything about it since, but what I'm saying is that revelation, that sharing was like, that's the first step.
That came up. Yeah.
And you're never going to have those moments unless you put yourself in those situations.
Right.
And yeah, you may play 30 golf games and no one's going to say shit or say anything, but that one day suddenly, God,
it's there and it's on your schedule.
You're waiting for them to make a chip, or whatever, and you're on the sideline. He says, you know what? I'm leaving my wife tomorrow, or, I don't know. I just got laid off.
Yeah.
Like, where do I go? What do I do? And and that's what friends are for. You're there for them. And I keep hearing this from other guys about these groups is that they realize that after spending time, you're there for them. Yeah. And they expect you to be there. Yeah. Also. I mean, they're you're there for them, they're there for you, is what I'm saying. And that to me, when I hear that, it's like, damn, this is what it's all about. Yeah. And I'm glad I've got this. Yeah. And it's made life a hell of a lot easier. And like I said, I can give all sorts of examples, but I won't bore you with it, but they're there. Yeah.
One other area that a lot of your readers really find inspiration and appreciation for your writing, and that is when it comes to being in a place where you're not pleased with your job and you need the inspiration to take a risk and make a change.
Well, when I was interviewing these guys, it just one of the walk away questions I always did, and this is with them, and it's I do this as a journalist, which is there something that I didn't ask in this interview that you think is important that other middle-aged guys think about or would like to read about? Yeah. And it just kept coming up, and I ended up giving it a name. I called it the middle-aged boogeyman. Okay. Or the boogeyman, and the whole thing is that there's a lot of guys, and like I said, I write about this in my book, who are very unhappy with their jobs. They're in midlife, and they, I went to college, I did this, I paid my dues, and here I am. And
they don't like what they're doing.
And I'm miserable doing it. I wake up every morning thinking like, what the hell did I've painted myself in this corner. I'm 53 years old. I don't like what I do, but I gotta pay the bills, and I end up calling it the boogeyman because, and I was in this situation too. It's like, it's like, you don't have the balls to make a change. Yeah.
It's scary.
It's like, really, the economy's terrible. If I leave this job, I'll never get paid what I'm making now. I'll never be able to do this, but I don't like what I'm doing. And that, when I interviewed guys, and there was one guy who inspired me, and I'll never forget this. Yeah. He said, one of the questions I asked, what's your greatest fear in life as a middle-aged guy? And that was one of the questions. And he goes, my biggest fear is I really hate I hate, but I don't like what I'm doing, and I'm miserable at work. And I said, well, what do you do for a living? He goes, I'm a grief counselor at like the VA hospital. And it's a great career, and I've helped a lot of people, but when you do it for like 25, 26 years, day in and day out, it's like, okay, I've got like 10 more years of doing this. Yeah. And is this what I really want to do in life? And I said, so what's your greatest fear? And he goes, my greatest fear is that something will come along that either I know deep in my heart I'd love to do. Yeah, it may involve less money, but boy, if I took that, I'd be happy as hell right now in life. And my greatest fear is that opportunity is going to come along and I won't take it. And I'll retire. I'll spend the next 10 years of my life miserable, waking up every morning thinking, I don't want to go to work, but I got to go to work. Yeah. And I said, that's my greatest fear, that I won't take that opportunity. 3 weeks after he told me that, I was sitting on my computer and I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty heavy. I'm typing up the notes. And no one has said that, And suddenly I go into work that day, and the outdoors writer at the Post-Standard in Syracuse had retired for health reasons. Okay. everybody said, Figura, don't you love fishing? Don't you love hunting? Damn, that'd be the perfect job for you.
Yeah.
And I inquired about it, right off the bat, $10,000 salary cut from what I was earning from my editor's job.
Yeah.
Came home, told my wife, geez, I'm thinking of applying for this. She goes, we got a kid in college. We got another one as a junior about ready to go. Boom. Right. And I was like, oh, okay, I will apply for that. Right. And then some guy ran into me in the hallway and said, there's like 15 people in the house who've applied for this job. This is like a choice job. He goes, I've applied for it. And you know what the word is? They think you're the best person for it, and they're wondering why you haven't applied.
Wow.
True story. And I'm just like, I came home that night, and and then one guy told me, he goes, you want to be like covering city council meetings and cop news and all this crap and overseeing reporters and the personnel stuff for the rest of your career? What do you want to be writing about hunting, fishing, and the outdoors? And I came home to my wife and I said, you know what? I don't care if they lay me off tomorrow if I become the outdoors writer.
Yeah.
And that was their fear. They're going to put me in a corner and they're going to lay me off. This is the idea that they're going to get rid of a high-priced middle manager,
Yeah.
He goes, that's tangential, And I said, you know what? They could lay me off anyway tomorrow. And why not get laid off doing something that you love doing at the time? So I don't have to spend one more day miserable doing what I'm doing. So I applied for it and I got it. And that was like 10 years ago.
Wow.
I made it happen.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, I still pitch myself. And I've had so many people say, how the hell did you get that gig,
Yeah.
But it was just, I took a risk.
Yeah.
And so all those pieces fit together.
Sure.
Getting your marriage, getting your friend situation, and guys, getting your job together where you're happy. And like when you get all three of those things cranked up, I think you got balance in your life.
Yeah.
Or a really good, healthy balance that contributes to really good mental health.
Yeah.
Okay, like the relationship thing, and this is something that came to me. It's like I actually talked with 3 marriage counselors because I said, I'm writing this thing about going to marriage counseling. I don't know crap about advising people about whether they should. I'm just worried about my own skin, and saving my marriage. Hell, I can't really advise other people, so I read everything that I wrote about that to 3 marriage counselors.
Yeah.
And just had them sign off and say, well, maybe you should say this, maybe you should say that. And I said, well, the bottom line is this. I mean, and I'll just tell you what my wife and I went through. It's just like, and there was one guy who, once again, these people I was interviewing, every once in a while they'd say something and like, ding, all this light would go off. Wow, this is pretty heavy, And the one guy said, and he was divorced.
Yeah.
He said, sometimes in your relationship, it's like you got to think of that old analogy of when you're on an airplane that's going down, you give yourself oxygen first so you can take care of your kids or whatever, rather than putting it on them. You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And he said it goes back to, as far as taking care of your kids, it's often a great thing to take care of your marriage first. And he said, and maybe it's just going out and having a weekend away apart from the kids and having wine, going out, doing whatever. And he goes, and having that conversation. Yeah. And I said, what conversation? And he goes, like this, the no holds barred conversation. And he goes, unfortunately, a lot of couples have gotten to the point where they can't have that discussion. Yeah. And that was kind of like, whoa. Yeah. And that's where my wife and I were before we had marriage counseling. It's like, no holds barred, Right. Yeah, the sex life sucks, you're selfish, you're whatever. Yeah. And you say that thing and that erupts into like World War III. Or some people can have that discussion. Yeah. And say it respectfully and, And so what I came to, and like my wife I got to the point is, we now have that no holds barred discussion when appropriate. Yeah. And I don't take offense, and I understand.
Permission to have it.
And we given each other permission to have this. And if you can't have that, well then maybe you need a professional to like be an arbitrator or to say like, did you hear what she just said?
Yeah.
David, do you know you're being a selfish asshole when you do things like that?
Yeah.
We each die, whatever. No, but it's like,
yeah.
And I just go back to this whole thing about, you know, more guys take better care of their cars than they do their marriages.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're driving along and you hear the brakes squealing, the blah, blah, blah,
right.
do you just keep driving?
Yeah.
I mean, that's an analogy that a lot of guys look at their marriage and they just go like, well, you know, it'll work out. It'll work out. But no, I mean, you hear that screech and you hear the bump.
Yeah.
It's like you need like a tune-up.
Yeah.
And then middle age is a great time to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and once again, you're cheating yourself if you aren't paying attention to all those signs.
And it sounds like you're saying throughout all of this that it's okay to take responsibility for where you've fallen short.
Right.
And
it's not failure.
You're not going to be right.
That's freaking life.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Nobody said it was going to be simple.
Yeah.
You know, and
or perfect.
Or perfect. And you know, it's funny when I bring up the marriage counseling thing. You know, being honest and open about that, I found often opens up other people, and they'll say like, well, shit, you know, my marriage failed, or my wife when I went through that a couple of years ago, and. Really? You know, people they don't go around with a placard. I went through marriage counseling and saved my marriage, or I, you know, whatever. But a lot of, and that's one of the reasons why my wife was, and it was like the Paris Peace Talks at times. She edited and read every bit of the book before I went to the publisher, because my idea was nothing that's in there is going to surprise her or embarrass her, or she's going to be against it being in there. Sure. That was my condition. Yeah. And there was some stuff she took out. She said, you know, nobody needs to know this. Yeah. But the whole thing about me almost having the affair, us shouting, our arguments, discussions about sex, she goes, well, you know what? I've talked to my friends and a lot of them have gone through the same crap. Yeah. And if nothing else, it inspires other people to say, well, you know, maybe we need to tune things up. Yeah. And she looks at me, this is all in the rear view mirror now, right? Right. Yeah. So, okay, you have my permission to write. And that discussion took place.
Awesome.
And
good for her.
And that's one of the reasons I love her so much. You know, she just she sees that. Yeah. And with her blessing it went in. Yeah.
So, given that sex is can be such a difficult topic in our culture to talk about, maybe in particular for men, you know, maybe in particular for men to talk about with women. I wanted to read a little bit from chapter 7.
Okay.
I love the subtitle, "Getting It On or Not." and you have two excellent quotes in here from other writers. The first one's Robin Williams, the comedian. Yep. He says, "See, the problem is that God gives men a brain and a penis, and only enough blood to run one at a time." And then the second quote to kick off this chapter is by Robert Byrne, author and well-known pool player. And he says, "Anybody who believes that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach flunked geography." So David Figura, he goes on to say, "Lots of funny things have been written about sex. It's no laughing matter, though, when you are a middle-aged guy and getting very little sex, or have been going cold turkey for months, even a year or years at a time, because of an uninterested mate or other issues. For me, sex is absolutely necessary in middle age. It was one of those slips of paper I kept pulling out of my pocket during our marriage counseling sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sounds like one of those crucial conversations that...
Right. The no holds barred discussion.
Yeah.
And what I guess what I've come to, and my wife is always like, you know, of course she's always weighing in on this, you know, and I mean, obviously, it's kind of funny, you know, it's like there's two groups of guys I talked to, two different types of answers. One of the question was with these interviews with guys, and it just, I thought it was a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Okay, during middle age, who is sex more important to, men or women?
Yeah.
I'd say 99% of the guys who are married, it was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I never turn it down. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't get enough of it. But she's got all this other stuff on her plate, the kids, work, blah, 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 blah. And 100% of the guys out who were divorced out on the dating scene,
Yeah.
it was an alternative universe.
Yeah.
They all said the exact opposite. Oh, the woman.
Huh.
And it was like, I mean, for a variety of reasons, and I can go into them, you know, about my own theories or this or that, but,
Yeah.
you know, part of it is, you know, I mean, the whole, like, friends with benefits movement and stuff like that, the guys are kind of, like, taken back by, you know, with professional women or women who don't want to get married but still want to have intimacy, but don't want to get into a serious relationship. Mm-hmm. That just blew a lot of guys away.
Yeah.
It's a new generation of... It's a cultural tsunami, if you will, out there.
Yeah.
I think Gail Sheehy wrote about this in The Passionate Life, talking about women in their 50s. And it's just like, a lot of guys shake their heads like, what am I missing, you know? But it's out there. But the bottom line is, as far as sex, you know, I mean, once again, I'm not a sex counselor, I'm not a marriage counselor. I just know what works in my life.
Yeah.
And I know what's important to me, and I know where my wife stands on all this, and we make accommodations for both of us.
Yeah.
And it's one of those topics that I'll just say we're at the stage of our relationship, and it's good where I can talk about anything with her. Yeah. Particularly about sex, like, you know, awesome. I won't give a specific. That's the kind of stuff she probably edited out, you know. No, you're not going to say that, you know. But, you know, it's like having that feeling that you can have that conversation is so refreshing, so connecting, if you will. I mean, you know, and you're not having that conversation with anybody else. Right, if you got a good relationship going. You know, there's no need to have that conversation. My wife would say, there's no need to have that conversation with anybody else.
But you can talk about the fact that you can talk about it and share that.
Yeah, you know, and be absolutely water in the face, cold water in the face, honest about that. Makes for a great relationship. And you know, guys, geez, I wish I could talk to my wife about that. Well, why the freak can't you? Once again, who's stopping you? Is she going to sue you? Is she... But, you know...
Are you going to do it wrong?
Are you going to do it wrong? Or screw up your chances and you won't get laid for a year afterwards because you said something wrong, you know? Well, or you take a step and you get a... One of the things in our relationship, going back to that women, you know, planning everything, and I was just like letting my wife run my social life. I mean, one of the things she really resented in our marriage counseling was that I plan everything. I plan our vacations, I plan our meals. If we're going to do anything this weekend, it's all on me. Why don't you stop thinking just about work, and I'd like you to take responsibility. And so I started, and this is part of the marriage counseling thing, where they said, well, okay, and the therapist turned to me, did you hear what she's saying? Are you capable? You're a manager. Can't you plan something with you too? And I rolled my eyes and said, yeah. Right. And so this whole idea of me planning from start to finish to weekend or even an overnight getaway someplace. And basically she just comes along for the ride, and I've made all the arrangements. And I'll say, set this date aside. We're going for a weekend. Whatever, we're going to see this concert, we're going to stay overnight, and I'm going to make all the arrangements, I'll buy the tickets, I'll do whatever. She loves that. And, you know, it's like, that was a start for us.
Yeah, sounds like you can apply that principle to just about every area of life. You know,
Right.
make it happen.
It won't happen unless you do it.
Take a step. Yeah,
think about that.
Take a step, figure it out, but
But
make it
it's
happen.
like, I mean, the bottom line is, and my wife and I have talked, we've talked about this ad nausea because we've been married for like more than 35 years, but it's like, sex is different for men and women. I don't care what anybody says, particularly when you get up there in the years, you go through menopause, the guys are shaking their head like, what the hell? What do you mean the hot flashes? What does that have to do with me?
Yeah.
I'm not feeling hot, or the wife throws the blankets off. Here, feel my chest. Feel the sweating.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. But women, like, they're focused on that. We're not.
Yeah.
You can't always get what you want.
Right.
And I keep thinking about that, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need.
Yeah.
And it really, I applied that to sex, but
Sure.
it really does at times, It's like, well, what do you need?
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. My wife always rolls her eyes when I say this, but I've given up making the U.S. Olympic sex team. I just don't have it in me, Maybe in my younger years I could have qualified at least for the trials.
Yeah, right.
But you know what?
At least be an alternate.
It ain't happening now. It ain't happening, I need to focus on getting what I need,
Yeah.
And it's not always initially what I think I need, but you talk about it, you work it out, and I think that a lot of couples, and the same thing with Laura and I, it was like, I don't know what I wanted to say about this. With a lot of couples, it's like the big question, big thing that comes out in marriage counseling or when they talk about the relationship is, geez, I haven't been laid, or we haven't had sex in like a year and a half. And, that's why our relationship is in the toilet. That's why, And what's the woman's response to that is that, and I think it's more accurate, which is, that's a symptom. That's a symptom of something that's wrong in your relationship.
Yeah.
And it's not like, well, if you get laid, then everything's going to go away. All the problems are going to go away. No, they're still there.
Right.
And that's one of the...
So take care of the problems, then you get laid.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. No, seriously though, but it's true. And I mean, as a guy, and I've had women come up to me and say like, geez, I read your book and that chapter on sex, like, holy cow, you guys really like, I mean, is your life run by your penis, like, to that extent? I mean, do you really think that way? And their husband's behind her going, but I mean, it's like joking about that, but it's like, there's a little bit of truth in all of that.
Yeah.
But I think you can't get your sex life together until you get other things in order. That's what I think, just having great sex.
Yeah.
And you can hear that all the time from guys like,
Yeah.
holy cow, we had great sex, but boy, was that a disaster of a marriage or a relationship. I had to leave her. The sex was great, and you think to yourself like, well, that's just part of the package.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hope I answered your question.
Yeah. I think there's probably something sexy about being responsible and taking care of life.
Right.
And something enlivening and maybe even better than just having good sex, but having sex that's making love, that's sharing your life.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not about just yourself like getting yourself off and getting yourself taken care of. It's like, I really, this is part of love. Is like, I want her to feel great as a result.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, that's crucial to me in our lovemaking. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Yeah. Well, David, we're glad that we have you here with the Men's Mental Health Initiative to share these stories and really show from a first-person perspective what good mental health is all about. I think that this will fit in very well with all the professional, scientific information on what it means to be mentally healthy. We need both first-person experiences as well as more objective, science put together, and we get something really powerful. So this has been a wonderful opportunity to look from the first person perspective on what us guys need to be mentally healthy throughout the lifespan, and yeah, I'm so glad that you could come and help us out.
Glad to share. You
Yeah.
know, it's like I tell people all the time when I sell these books
Yeah.
is that, and some people think it may be a little corny, but I really sincerely believe this, is after somebody reads this book, I'll say, can I ask one favor of you? And they'll turn to me like as they're walking away, like, what? After you finish it, if it resonates, can you pass it on to someone else who you think
Yeah.
could use it?
Yeah.
And I guess this book gets passed around.
Yeah.
And my wife has said that, like, she works at Welch Allen. And she has said, all these people have talked about reading the book. And my wife said, did you buy it? No, I got it from my brother-in-law. I got it from
Yeah.
my
Awesome.
wife. You
Yeah.
know. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that makes
It
me
comes
feel
recommended.
good. That makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And, you know, if nothing else, it raises the level of discussion. And that's why I got into journalism
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Because I like raising the level of
Yeah.
discussion of important things. And
Yeah.
I think this fits into why I did it. You know, it's going to raise the level
Sure.
of discussion among
Sure.
men and women alike about what men are doing or not doing during these years and how it affects their happiness and relationships. And if I can start, that discussion going,
Yeah.
I mean, I've accomplished what I wanted to out of this book.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not going to make $1 million, and hell, if I could just pay off my credit card bills, I'll be fine. You know, relating to this
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where I'm coming from. You know.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you.
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.